You're listening to the Bathtub Refinishing Podcast. Powered by BathTubGuys Refinishing. We discuss the refinishing industry, interview owners and operators, and give tips to business owners and entrepreneurs. Now, here's your host, Daniel Montalvo.
All right, guys. Welcome back to the podcast. It's a solo show today. I haven't done one of these in a little bit, but excited to get back into it. I've been super busy. For those of you who keep up with Bathtub Guys stuff on the socials, you know it has been a wild couple months. Adding new locations, doing that whole thing has been good. It's been fun. It's taken up a ton of time, but now kind of taking a step back, we have some new things we're cooking up to continue expansion and continue it strong. But I am here doing the podcast today, which I always miss doing. You want to know what the biggest hangup is, in all honesty, aside from being busy, is just that I have the podcast configured for two different formats, right? So when I have a show with more than one person, I set it up on a whole different computer, on a whole different system, because I need it to be on the big computer for it to be able to process multi-camera. And then when I'm doing a solo one, I run it from a laptop in the same room. And the reason is that it's a lot easier for me to troubleshoot small fixes from here. It's a lot more involved when I'm doing a bigger show, and so I set everything up initially over there. And honestly, now saying it out loud, it's kind of retarded because I should just set it up over there on the big computer and then just only have to move the camera. But for some reason in my brain, logically, this made more sense. Um, but yeah, how are you guys doing? I'm happy to be back. I have notes because I tend to ramble on these things, especially on the solo ones. I tend to ramble a little bit. So I'm trying to keep everything steady, give you guys a little fun, entertaining show slash update. So the first thing on my notes is Bathtub Guys expansion. So where have we expanded to? I believe since the last episode. Um, Last episode was with Ken from Sarasota, so that opened. Further expansion into Texas. I think we have a pretty good stronghold in there now. So we started with San Antonio and Austin, and now we officially launched in DFW, Dallas Fort Worth, and Houston. So two big metroplex areas, ton of people, ton of demand for refinishing work. And so we're happy to be there. And for those of you who don't know, like I don't like Daniel Montalvo does not manage these locations. I lend the brand to somebody who is managing and running those locations in that area. And so the gentleman who started over there in Texas, the two locations, was like, yeah, I'm gonna add more locations, and I mean, why not? It's printing money for him, so they're doing really well, and I'm happy to, I'd rather work with, in all honesty, I'd rather work with less people who are doing more than a bunch of people who are doing less. I think it's just kind of it's easier to manage. They already have a go get it attitude. They're getting it done, and they've expressed some interest in some other places too. So that's exciting. So far, let me see if I can do it off the dome. We have Orlando, Tampa, Jacksonville, Sarasota, Atlanta, Central Massachusetts, South Carolina, Austin, San Antonio, Houston, Dallas, Kansas City, and I believe that's it for right now. We do have some other stuff cooking up. I have a lot of interest over on the West Coast, a ton of stuff from California. Problem with California is like land of regulation, so it's like harder to do refinishing over there. You actually do need a contractor license, and there's some other considerations too. We're thinking maybe that's one that we might want to in-house. Um, and depending on how the next couple weeks go, plans may change. You got to be looking business. You got to be fluid and be willing to kind of transform into different things. I really like how things are going right now, but it doesn't mean that it can't be better. And that is actually going to segue into something else I want to touch on, but not quite yet, in a little bit about Tubcast. And I know you guys have been following along with a lot of you who watch this regularly or who keep up with our stuff on social media. You've been kind of seeing the evolution of Tubcast and like what is possible with it. And I know that in the beginning, especially, there was a lot of, I guess, like speculation on, you know, the results that we're getting with it. By the way, new shirt. I'm sorry. I don't know if you guys saw it with the new logo. Wait. There you go. I don't know. I got sidetracked. But anyway, I know there's a lot of people kind of have questions about that, and we're going to touch on that. But next thing I want to talk about, aside from Bathtub Guys expansion stuff, which is very exciting, but this podcast isn't just about me, being self-aggrandizing. Is that how you say it? I don't want to just be like bragging or talking about my stuff all the time. I am proud of it and I do like to share it for those of you who are interested or to inspire you guys to grow your own business. I think that for that stuff, that's like the reason I talk about it. I want to help more people, and for anybody who has dreamed about expanding, I'm just letting you know it is possible and we are doing it our way. But new hires, man, and issues with new hires. So it has been like insane. So just a couple months ago, I've always been very good with Google Ads, but the algorithms keep changing. They turn like super AI heavy lately, and originally, not originally, but like recent years hasn't really quite been like that. Now there's this big AI push across all industries, right? So, um, Google Ads is now no stranger to it. It's also changed, and kind of the evolution of the platform has become a lot more AI driven, and with that being that we're in a super niche industry, um, a lot of my keyword targeting seemed to have been kind of outdated. And so um, I was doing, since I run so many locations, I have to make very conservative yet strategic moves to make sure that I'm continuing to get better results than previously, but without taking so much of a left turn that I derail an entire campaign. Because it's one thing for Orlando, who has, in Orlando we have different streams of revenues from, a lot of our property managers, hotels that we've worked with from years. A lot of ground game is built here, but in all the other locations where they're just starting, they're building up those relationships, so they really do depend on the day-to-day residential flow. And thankfully with Google Ads, I mean, we really have been knocking it out of the park. But um I have noticed that in Orlando in the last couple years, there was like a big drop off in leads. And one of the things that I found was my keyword targeting was just super freaking tight, um, for what the platform has turned into today. So I'm going to get into a little bit of nerd Google ad stuff, but I promise you it won't take that long. Essentially, Google's algorithm before was a little too liberal with keyword targeting, so you had to tighten it down, and basically in Google Ads use exact match and phrase match only, and heavily leaning towards exact match because we are in a niche industry. So Google's algorithm before, which wasn't really AI driven, it was just a complex algorithm, couldn't really distinguish what the intent was behind, or what the difference in intent was behind bathtub refinishing and bathroom remodeling, or bathtub refinishing and bathtub replacing. It said bathtub re this, bathtub re that, obviously refinishing, replacement, and it just would kind of conflate the two. So, in order to get a good campaign years ago, you needed to have tight keyword matching, and it needed to be A1 steak sauce, bro. It needed to be like super, super tight, or else you would get a bunch of junk leads. And I remember a couple years ago, like, not only was I paying more for Google Ads and not getting as nice of a result, which there's other reasons for that, but this is one of them. Um, I was paying up to like 10 grand a month in Google Ads, and I remember um, I was getting like 70 to 85 leads a month in Orlando, which is good. We were making good money. We were selling a ton. Um, but with the recent changes to Google's algorithm, dude, I am able to spend sometimes a third of that, but most of the time hovering around half, and getting better results than I did before because of just how good Google's AI, the new algorithm, has actually gotten. I know a lot of people, There the AI thing for me personally, I'll get into it in a little bit, but I think for artistic things or things that, you know, are content or stuff like that, it's kind of tacky. I did play with it a little bit, but mostly in a joking way. I don't know if you guys like follow the Bathtub Guys page, but like I made like a robot rolling on a tub, like on as an April Fool's joke. I couldn't really find a decent place to use it in my business because realistically, I think one of the things that makes my company different than other people's is that there is a big human element to what we do. Funny enough, we are bigger than most reglazing companies in a lot of ways, but we almost come off more human than they do because we show our face, we talk. There's a person who is like the face of the brand, and other people who are faces of the thing. I mean, Patrick shows his face on my stuff. I show my face on his stuff. So there's actual people here, and so like I don't want to dig into that too deep, but essentially, like for content and social media stuff, I don't think for me, like it just isn't the kind of thing I want my brand representing. We still in house and make everything by hand as far as like content goes. A human being edits that stuff, but as far as the algorithm goes for Google Ads, man, it has gotten so good because now I'm running most campaigns with phrase match and actually broad match, and it's actually giving me very, very contextually relevant leads. Like people who type something that makes sense that they would want to be fed an ad about bathtub refinishing. And like I said, what it's done for us is, and this is the important thing that I'll also touch on in a bit, but for us, man, again, a third of ad spend sometimes, but most of the time hovering around half with way better results. We're getting more leads than ever, and we're closing them at higher costs than ever. Um, and it's just been great. Now, the thing I just wanted to touch on right now is, but that's the importance of not always thinking you know everything, right? Like for us, I've been doing this so long, it would have been so easy for me to just continue business as usual, not rock the boat, and kind of, brush aside some new system that Google put out um, as like a fad or as something that isn't worth my time. But actually, man, it's the opposite. Like I tried it, and because we're in a niche, having that AI layer on top of the algorithm actually gives us just higher intent across the board. And if you guys know anything about Google, I've talked about this in the past, but they, above all else, want to feed the end searcher the most relevant thing to them. So again, where people feel like the ad is speaking to them because that AI coupled with that complex algorithm is pushing it out and just kind of matching us. And these matches have been, for the most part, like made in heaven. They've been great. We've had a great customers, very very happy with the work. They're not really complaining about pricing. Um, it's just been great, and we're saving money while doing it. So we've been able to do that because Google's algorithm. So if you guys do dabble with Google Ads at all, I will say, um, if the things that worked 3 or 4 years ago, they don't work the same way anymore. And again, that talks to the importance of not assuming you know everything, being open and susceptible to change, and just continuing to educate yourself so that you can make these decisions for your business to better them. Because I'm going to be honest, like we were hovering around 120 to $130 per lead when we were running Google Ads the old way. And I like to say nuked, but yeah, I'm going to say it. We nuked the campaign. I always say that when I just destroy it, delete it, just get rid of it. Um, I completely nuked that campaign. Like we're in April 29th as of recording this. 2026, by the way. Um, I nuked this campaign probably like mid-February of this year, and I have seen an insane return, like to the second that I switched and tried a lot more of these AI features and kind of loosened that rope that I had around my keyword targeting. It's been great. I've been very happy with it, and I definitely recommend dabbling with it if you haven't. Again, what works for me might not work for you, but it has worked for us, and I want to share that because I legitimately like helping other business owners, it to my detriment, unfortunately. Um, but yeah, I like right now that's something that's really working well for us is uh is the new keyword targeting. But again, don't think you know everything. I don't think I know everything. This segues into the next thing I want to talk about, which is Tubcast. And a lot of people who, it's funny because when we started using Tubcast and we started making it pretty much the exclusive thing that we do here, right? Roll on path to refinishing for a myriad of reasons that I'll dabble on real quick. It's, the ease of application, which leads to ease of training, which leads to less revolving door, not relying on as skilled a trade person and more so a skilled laborer that can handle minuscule tasks to achieve a predictable, scalable result. That's why I changed to this, and eventually, ultimately, why I partnered with RBS and kind of had our exclusivity thing going. Um, but not assuming I knew everything, right? When I started using this product, I thought to myself, this is good enough for me to make the transition. But the intent, and I talked about this earlier, you can go back to those old podcast archives and watch them. I always intended for this, for Tubcast in its original form to evolve with how we used it, having a direct line to somebody who manufactures the stuff, who can find chemists that can alter the stuff like Patrick. And our relationship from the beginning was always we're going to start with this as the base because it's good. And we're going to make it better and better and better. And I'm happy to say, like, we proved so many naysayers wrong. And again, this touches on not thinking you know everything. I had a lot of people tell me things that just flat out aren't true now. They might have been true back then, but now they're not true. I had a bunch of people online tell me you're never going to get a finish that is comparable to a spray finish because it's being rolled on. You're always going to have roller marks or roller texture because it's rolled on. You're never going to get that smooth, glossy, like look like you get with a spray finish. Yeah, you're wrong. You guys were wrong. The people who said that were wrong. Um, we actually teamed up with a chemist, um, and he sent us, I believe, like 5 or 6 different samples. Um, and every single time we'd give notes, what we like, what we didn't like, boom, send it back. And eventually, he cracked the code on it. And I am very happy to say that we now, I'm calling it Tubcast 2.0, but it's just a new Tubcast. Um, it's indistinguishable. It is literally the same thing. I had a guy, one of my trainers, Santiago, who's been refinishing professionally for 12 years, has been doing roll on for a year and a half. Um, he has sprayed more tubs than a lot of people who might even be watching this. And he would always tell me, "This is really good with the original tub. This is really good, but it's not quite at like spraying." When I gave him the sample of this product and he did a tile job, he was like, "This is exactly like spray. It looks exactly the same. The sheen level, the self-leveling qualities that it has, um, it's identical." And I'm going to show you guys a picture here on this podcast so you guys can see. But on this shower job, if you pay close attention to where the light is hitting the ceramic tile, it looks the shine, right? That reflection that's coming off the actual sheen, it looks exactly the same on the before and the after. Obviously, one of them is bare ceramic tile, and the other one is one that was refinished. But the actual profile of that sheen, there's no texture. It's nice and smooth and flat and glossy, and it looks like natural ceramic tile. And so we've achieved that on both the tiles and the bathtubs with this new system, which is just an altered version of the original Tubcast Ecopel roll-on formula. Heavily modified now. This one is, I would say, damn near brand new completely. There are some things that architecturally are similar. It's still an epoxy, it's still odorless. And now the process is 100% VOC free. No acetone involved. I know before some people were saying, well, it's not actually VOC free. It was VOC exempt. As a process, the coatings were always VOC free. But because of the way we had to alter the original Tubcast formula to get it to roll on. We had to use acetone, which, would make it VOC exempt because acetone is an exempt VOC. So it's still way safer than using, say, xylene. But now for those people, also, we made the entire process VOC free now. So I'm happy to say that. I'm happy to report that. Couldn't be happier with that. And this is leading us to the to growing, to really pushing the envelope with our expansion, and again lowering that skill gap so that we can deliver us a predictable, scalable, and great result to the end customer, without having to rely on super highly skilled tradespeople. um in many ways, and I joked about this with Danny Garcia the other day, but I really do feel like, um, and this means different things to different people, but I do think that we are becoming kind of like the Chick-fil-A of the space. Like, killer customer service. It's not the best ever, but it is a high quality result that is predictable and scalable. And I am okay with that. I'm okay with that because my customers are okay with that. And so I've said it before, I'll say it again, but I'm here to serve the end customer, not the ego of myself or refinishers. And so I'm really happy with what we've done there. Um, Goes into another thing I wanted to touch on: new hires. So because of all these things we've been doing with Google Ads, now with the new product, um, the new Tubcast formula, we've been hiring more people because we've been very busy here in Orlando. And I just got done training a guy. Well, trying to train a guy who had experience, and I'm not going to say his name, but he worked with a company called Safe Step. And if you guys don't know Safe Step, they're a national bathtub refinishing company. They're kind of like a traveling refinishing company because they do pretty much only hotels, from what I understand. And if you've ever done a hotel bathtub refinishing and you've seen those little diamond non-slip on the bottom of the tub, like actual, like it kind of feels like that shark grip or like those little polymer balls, that's fine sand, but it's shaped like little diamonds. That's kind of like their signature, that the tub was theirs. And they do, like, I mean, they're famous for like spraying the bottoms only and doing touch up work and kind of stuff like that. But whatever, they do a ton of hotel work. This guy worked for them. He told me 6 years, but it came out in the training when he was with my tech Santiago, who trains everybody on roll on. That he actually worked there for 3 years. So that was like a red flag from the beginning. But whatever, I thought 3 years experience should be good enough to, like, as far as the prep goes, and then all we would have to do is teach the gentleman how to do the roll on. But it was astonishing to me how somebody who, number one, worked with a company that was that big, um, as a prep guy, but he had to have the room prepped well enough for a guy to go behind him and spray something on. This guy, man, he couldn't even line up tape the right way. It was the most insane thing. Look, most people who come here for paid trainings, who are opening locations, are on the field with Santiago for a week. Most of my new hires for Orlando, I give them a week before I send them out. I gave this guy the benefit of the doubt so hard that maybe he was just nervous, maybe it was just this, maybe it was just that. By the way, we were paying him substantially more than he was making at the other company, like substantially more. Um, I gave him like a month of supervised work. And this guy, for lack of a better word, he shit the bed every single opportunity. And it was just crazy. It was an experience that um I'll truly never forget. One of the things to me that's like a telltale sign of somebody who, whether they're trustworthy or not, one of the things that was stuck in the back of my head, and this is where I'm gonna give generalized advice for those of you who want it. Um, if there's red flags from the beginning, take them serious. I wouldn't say completely discount them, but look at them a little bit finer, a little bit closer, put the magnifying glass under them, because what I saw from the beginning was a lot of inconsistencies in things that he said versus the reality, things that he promised versus the reality. For those of you who don't know, sold a bunch of trucks. I don't like having the trucks anymore, realistically, because I don't need them anymore for the style of refinishing we're doing. And I think that it's a fair trade off to pay a guy some more money to take his own vehicle, and me not have to worry about caring for them and all that stuff. Um, and so this guy, when we first hired him, I told him, hey, man, I'm not going to give you a vehicle. You need to have your own transportation and pay for your own fuel. And from the very beginning, it's like he forgot that that was talked about. Keep in mind, I inflated his wage pretty much. How I inflated his contractor pay from the beginning, paying him a higher rate because I was taking that into account. Now, part of it is my fault for not nipping it in the butt right away, but I kind of let it slide because I was hoping that this guy would end up working out for us and be a really kick-ass technician. But that was red flag like number one. It was like he needed a vehicle borrowed from us from the first job he went to. He said that he had a vehicle, he was ready to go. We gave him a 3 weeks buffer, so 2 weeks, a week, and then 2 weeks notice for his old company before he came to us. So he had plenty of time to figure out a vehicle situation, and then just like didn't figure it out and told me during the interview that he had his own vehicle, that it was reliable. And then like the day before, he's like, "How can I go about getting a truck because my vehicle's not reliable?" I'm just like, but I already put so much things in motion to get this guy started, so I just accepted. Now, um, then the next thing is that what I just mentioned to you guys a little bit before, where he told me he had 6 years experience at SafeStep. Come to find out, when he's talking to Santiago on the job site after a month, he let it slip that it was actually really just 3 years. And then some other things that I just thought. I mean, at one point, Santiago called me and told me he thought this guy was like a spy because because he kept mentioning like the good old days of SafeStep, and like the reason he came to us, by the way, is because he was telling us that they were giving him like 11 and 12 hours, um, like a week, and that he couldn't survive, that he was doing Uber Eats constantly or DoorDash to make ends meet. And so he needed something that was higher paying too, because he was only making like $21 an hour or something like that. So not only did we pay him more, but we were giving him a much busier schedule, and he just fumbled it, and just did a bad job. Um, and it was just weird. I don't know if I lost my train of thought completely there, but the main point is that, so Santiago thought he was a spy. Well, it's because he was talking about like, man, Safe Step, they give us this Christmas bonus at the end of the year, even though we have the 3 weeks off, and it's great. It's like, do they do anything like that here? And Santiago was like, not really. Like, we get a performance bonus at the end of the year if we do really well. He takes us to dinners and stuff like that. He's like, oh, I really want that bonus, man. At Safe Step, they really took care of us. And then it's like, it's just crazy, like how guys will remember the 2 to 3 weeks. Then, by the way, this says a lot about his character and his mentality. Guys will remember the 2 to 3 weeks where the company took care of them, and not the other 360 days of the year when they literally could not survive. So they had to take on gig work like to like survive. They had to do Uber Eats and DoorDash to pay their bills because they were only getting 12-hour shifts. Like, that is insane to me. And then the other thing is, like, he was telling me, and I don't know how true this is, so take it with a grain of salt. This is just from what I've heard. This is 100% hearsay, that they would pay him like an extra $2 an hour per diem when he had to drive from Orlando to California, to Virginia, to Georgia, to New York, to Louisiana. Like, that's it? Like a $2 per diem per hour? Like, to me, that is completely acid. And he told me also that it was not rare for him to consistently just miss money on his check. So all these things happening, he comes here, and all he's doing is reminiscing on the few good things that they did. And I think, like, for me, what it solidified in my head anyway is that there's people, and then there's people, right? Like, there's guys who want to work. They want to earn their place, and they want to do better for themselves, and they want to make more money. And then I think there's guys who just kind of want to skate by, and they want to get a pat on the head and an eventual, like, occasional, like, hey, here's a little Christmas bonus, even though you didn't work the last like 7 months and you can barely feed your family. And like to them, like because that 1 week of the year they got a pat on the head and a little bit of a break, they completely forget the complete, like, I don't want to say the word, but like the complete taking advantage of that the other company is doing to them. Um, versus when they get an opportunity like this where they have to work, but there's so much more opportunity monetarily, and but it's more of a opportunity where you get what you put in. All they do is think about the couple handouts they got. And so he even went as far as to tell my technician, who is a trainer, dude, with everything you could make a ton of money over at Safe Step, like doing like commercials for them or like trying to promote them. So that's why Santiago came to me and told me that he thought that he was a spy, which was I thought was funny. But again, at the end, like 4 weeks into it, guy could even tape up lines the right way. Um, he didn't. He never really picked up the role on it. He messed up a job so bad that we almost got kicked off of the job site. Um, so bad that like it took 3 days longer than it should have because we had to fix and undo all the damage he did with the job. Um, it was an experience, but what I want to say as far as advice goes, again, don't ignore those red flags that come in early. Just look at the people closer because it can tell you a lot about them. And then the other part too is, um, with people, I don't think that a lot of us who own businesses fully understand, but Santiago told me something that I thought was important, and now I'm implementing it to everyone going forward who we do try and hire here. Um, realistically, people either got it or they don't, and you're going to spend more time trying to make someone who doesn't got it get it than looking for the next person who just got it. Um, Danny Garcia also told me that. Shout out to Danny Garcia. With we always me and him used to always talk about hire fast, fire faster, that type of mentality. And it's not anything personal against the guy. He was a good dude, very genuinely nice, a sweet guy, and I really hated to see him go. But this just did not click for him. It didn't click. It never clicked. And in all honesty, we would have known that week one. We did know it week one, and I kept trying to push the issue because I really wanted it to work. But instead, I ended up wasting a month of payroll and potentially, ruining an opportunity with somebody else who might have come in and learned it. Now, I do have another guy training. My goal is to get two more guys here in Orlando, to really keep up with the demand. But like the moral of the story is we knew and we tried to force it and it just doesn't work. There are guys who get it early on and understand what it is. And like I said, you either got it or you don't. And guys who get it know if somebody else gets it or not. Because a lot of the stuff with the roll on, just to be perfectly honest, is common sense using your brain. And he lacks some of that. I mean, he was doing jobs with, first of all, not wanting to use PPE in some cases. And Santiago had to yell at him and stop him. Like, what the heck are you doing? You're going to get sick. You have children. And then the other thing, by the way, forcing him to put it on before he continues. And then the other thing, um, which I thought was just as alarming, like the working with no gloves. Like we have the protection for you to when you're applying these coatings, not get it on your hands. And he would just like forget that he was just touching something with paint on it and then go and rest his hand against a countertop or rest his hand against a cabinet fixture and get paint on it. And then we have to go and risk damaging somebody's property to clean off a mess. And look, bro, I got away from spraying partially because I did not want to deal with overspray and damaging people's things. So for a guy to somehow make it work with make that part work of getting a mess in someone's house with a paint roller because he doesn't want to wear gloves and protect his hands, like that to me was a much bigger consideration in letting the guy go than whether or not he'd eventually understand how to roll it on. Because in my brain, what went through my head and what ultimately made me make the decision of letting him go is I can teach this guy how to roll, but can I teach him common sense? And then I asked myself, can you teach anybody common sense? And I think the answer is no. I think if you miss that window of development when you're a child, you just don't got it. And then you can't do things like this. And aside from that, too, a couple other things, just rushing through jobs, absolutely like he was very messy with the acid etch and got it on someone's tile one day. Again, not lining up tape. Like we don't tape a ton because we're rolling it on. He couldn't line up 2-inch tape like the right way. He would have it like bridging onto the actual tile sometimes or touching the tub. It was just like to me just lacking common sense. There's days where Santiago would show him something and literally be like, "All right, now you do it," and he just would mess it up. And then sometimes he'd show a little sign of progress, but then he'd mess up something again. That all he needed to do was turn on the common sense part of the brain to execute, and he would just not execute. So again, guys, moral of the story: do not ignore those signs when you're training people, when you have new people. Um, look, unless somebody when somebody tells you or shows you the type of person they are, believe them. I'm going to leave you with that. They show you the type of person they are, the way that they work, the way that they operate, believe them until proven otherwise. That is something that would have saved me a ton of time and a ton of money. And I don't want anybody to go through that because it really sucked. But thankfully, we have another person kind of taking the reins on that right now. So the last thing on my notes that I want to touch on briefly is some new opportunities. For those of you who know, been keeping up again, this is talking about Bathtub Guys expansion stuff, but we have been expanding here at Bathtub Guys and we're happy to continue the growth. But that whole thing may change soon. Um, what we're really eyeing, and if people are interested out there, is people who are potentially just people who may want to be an operator, have some ownership, but have a machine behind them ready to support and blow a location up. So essentially, split ownership and operational structure, um, so that we can catapult a location from, say, $30,000 a month to 70, 80, $90,000 a month. And then from there, you do have some ownership in the location. But what you are actually getting out of this is you're getting a smaller piece of a much bigger pie, more stability, more opportunities for you to have a real retirement, uh, just things that will help solidify you long term and keep you from having to grind and do it all yourself. That is a path we're looking at. Right now, it is going fantastic with the locations I named at the beginning of this, who are very much just doing it themselves. But what I see and what we see here internally is a little bit of hesitance to pull that trigger and to elevate to the next level. Um, I talked to our operator in Atlanta. I love him. He's a cool dude. We talk, once a week about their progress and stuff. And I wholeheartedly believe just what I see on paper that he could probably have another person on staff right now and just make double the money. But he doesn't see that. But why doesn't he see it? More important, I'm from the outside looking in as someone who runs an operation and doesn't have to do the labor. He's answering the phones, doing the labor, doing the material, owning the business, doing all these things, wearing all these hats. So he knows that he's limited in his ability, or maybe he doesn't know. I think he doesn't know is actually the right way to phrase this. He doesn't know how limited he is in his ability to effectively sell at scale because his day is taken up with operations and doing the work. Okay. And if he just had more time, if he hired another guy and took a 2 or 3 day loss just just to get a new guy out on the road, he would sell so much more because now he could be dedicated to the phones and to sales that he would just in 2 or 3 weeks he would just make twice the money. But again, because he's in that, he doesn't see it. He sees, well, I'm selling $30,000 worth of work, and I'm doing all these things. How could I possibly sell more enough to have another guy? And what he doesn't see again is that because he's one of the guys doing the work, that is exactly that is that is exactly what is keeping him from being able to sell enough to have 3 or 4 guys on the road. Because if somebody calls you at 9:30 in the morning and you're standing in a bathtub and you miss that call, what happens? They go with somebody else. If you got an inquiry through the lead form, and you don't get back to them until the end of the day, do you think that they just sat by waiting for you? Almost never. And Bathtub Guys, our signature here is speed and a quality, predictable result. And so when you take out one of the biggest elements that helps our company work, and you can't really provide that efficiently at scale, what we look at is how can we help? And I think that if we gave them these tools to just kind of blow their business up and still gave some ownership, that there's potential for that to work. But again, it's not something that is completely set in stone yet. It's something that we're talking about. They're doing fantastic. And for this guy who just started in February running ads, having a business that's making 30K a month is astronomical. It's fantastic. But there is more potential there from what I see. And so we're looking at this from a bunch of different angles, but I do think that someone in that position could further grow. And we talk about it, and I hope he doesn't take anything personal. To me, I just think that that there's a lot of potential there for him to grow, and I want to see him grow. But that's his business, and going forward, what we want to do is try and find markets that have that potential with people who um, will help propel it to the next level with our help. Um, but again, if not, and if there's people who are interested in location, still reach out, because we are really right now trying a hybrid approach. They're both working fantastic. But again, like I said in the beginning with the paint about our company in general, we are always looking to get better here. I don't think I know everything. So I'm always trying new things. And that's what our company is all about. We try new things, we try to be better, we try to grow, and that's just how it is. I wholeheartedly believe that if you aren't growing, you're dying. So I'm gonna leave you guys with that. I appreciate you guys watching this podcast. If you guys have any questions for me, leave them in the comments. And yeah, love you guys. Bye bye.
You've been listening to the Bathtub Refinishing Podcast. If you liked what you heard, be sure to keep up with the Bathtub Guys on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, or visit BathTubGuys.com for more. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.